Let's jump in and start exploring the UV mapping workspace and the tools that will allow us to create these wonderful 2D versions of our 3D models. So I've gone into the UV editing workspace found in the tabs at the top of your Blender interface, and this is what the lay of the land kind of looks like. On the left-hand side, we have a very important area. This little grid is the actual UV grid itself. This is a unique environment that's dedicated to texturing. What we're seeing here is not a grid along the X and the Y axes. We're actually seeing a unique texture coordinate system on the U, the horizontal, and the V, the vertical. You're only ever going to see and hear mentioned U and V inside of this texturing environment. It really is specific. This grid is where we're going to both be able to see, edit, and manipulate all of our UVs and our UV islands. Let me show you what they look like real fast. I am working with the paint bucket scene that we had in a previous module, and the computer automatically tries its best, and it really does try its best to create UVs for us when we're generating our models. 99.9998% of the time, the UVs that the computer automatically creates are garbage. They're just not going to work because they don't match the size, scale, and proportions of their 3D counterpart. However, let's just take a look at it so you guys have a frame of reference as to what's going on. I have the room selected, and if I was to simply hit the tab key, there we go. Now we're going to start to see all of the UVs for the selected objects. Okay, so it happens at a selection. Okay, I'm in the, let's go into my face selection state. Whenever I select the polygon, it's automatically going to show me its UVs inside the grid itself. Okay, UVs happen at the component level, not at the object level. And this is important because a lot of folks, they start working with UVs and they think that they're always going to see them at the object level. Well, you're not. You have to be in edit mode in order to see your UVs. So object mode, nothing shows up here inside of our UV quadrant. I go into edit mode, boom, there's all of our UVs. The other hitch that we run into when working with UVs inside of Blender is that initially the system is based on a selection system. So if I select this floor polygon, we're going to see its UVs. But I'm not seeing the UVs for the wall and for the baseboards. Well, let me show you something here inside of our UV toolbar on the left-hand side of the screen. Let me get out of the way here for a second. It's way up here at the top. This little icon right here is an important one to be aware of. This is called UV Sync Selection. And with it off, it requires a physical selection of a 3D component, a polygon, to show its UV inside the grid. With Sync Selection on, it's going to ignore the selection in our 3D view and show me everything at the object level. So now I'm at object level, no UVs. I go into edit mode, but now I'm seeing everything on that object because here over, this is the UVs for our baseboards. Let's see. Yeah. Our UVs for our wall are in there too. They're not great, but now we're seeing everything. I usually have this sync selection on, and this is something that I find just to be a little bit of a workflow modifier for me personally, because I want to be able to go into edit mode and see all of my UVs across all of the components on that object. Okay, so the next part of our interface is to deal with this center divider. You want to keep this center divider kind of handy, or be aware that you can change its orientation, because this grid is going to be our primary work area. We have some tools, but for the most part, we're going to be moving, rotating, and scaling our UVs. Okay, this is our primary work environment. So I often kind of dock the 3D viewport off to the side so I can make a nice big work environment for me to work with all of our UVs. Our UVs have their own selection states that are identical to the vert, edges, and faces selection state that we saw in our 3D modeling toolkit. Here we go. So we can select the vertices on our UVs, the edges, and of course the faces as well. So you're going to see me jumping in and out of these different selection states. Same keyboard shortcuts, 1, 2, and 3. This should go pretty fast and pretty easy. Now, when working with this double viewport environment, often we're going to want to go in and make some changes to how the right-hand side is displaying our three-dimensional scene. Like specifically, I want to change my viewport shading style from solid preview into material preview so I can begin to see the benefits of all of these textures showing up on the polygons. Well, at the moment, yeah, I've got a huge problem. All of the viewport options that allow me to change the shading styles are seemingly gone. Well, they're not actually gone. They're just being kind of truncated a little bit by the small width of this part of our interface. This is another reason why I want to have a 3-button mouse, because I'm going to use my scroll wheel. If you don't have a scroll wheel, this is not going to happen, unfortunately. I'm going to scroll down, and now I'm shifting that top row horizontally within inside that frame. And of course, as I get all the way to the right, here are all of our viewport shading styles. I'm going to change it over here to material preview. In addition, I'm going to turn all of this stuff off, all these viewport gizmos and gadgets. It's pretty neat. They're useful, but in the UV editing space, we're not going to be using them too much at all. So this little button right here is going to allow me to turn off all of that stuff. One final note before we go away from this, these big blue lines, these big blue lines inside of our scene, those are coming from what are called hard seams, okay? Those hard seams allow the computer, or they tell the computer when to start and stop smoothing across groups of polygons. They're really important when it comes to the smoothing algorithms and how the lights kind of work within inside of our scene. But in this workflow, they're just kind of getting in the way. So once again, I'm going to go into my viewport properties, and down here at the bottom, I want to turn off my sharp creases. Or excuse me, the visibility of my sharp edges, not creases, my sharp edges, and all those blue lines go away. So I usually turn them off. We haven't deleted their function. They're still doing the exact same thing they're supposed to on these small little bevels down here for our baseboards. We're just turning the visibility of those sharp edges on and off, which is pretty neat. That's a handy little workflow modifier. Okay. Let's get things working here. I'm pretty pleased with what we got. Now keep in mind, at the object level, you're not going to see your UVs. Hit tab if you want to go into your UV workspace so you can start working with this. Before we go any further, let's add a material, maybe a few materials into our scene here so we can start getting a really good understanding of how these UVs are working with our textures. And luckily for us in this environment, our traditional material workflow is available to us. But since we're going to be using UVs to determine the placement of our images on our models, we don't have to go into the shader graphs and that shading workspace to manipulate our textures. It makes it a little bit easier, which I am all about. So let's go into our material library here. This is the material that's been applied to all of the polygons. Let's start breaking it out here. This one, we'll make this one floor. I'm going to add another material slot. And let's call this one, let's put a new material in there, excuse me. Let's call this one baseboards. And lastly, we'll add a third slot and fill it with material called wall. And as one might imagine, we're going to be assigning some materials to all of these. Let's start with the floor. I'm going to go into the base color attributes of my material. Click on the yellow dot, just like we did before, excuse me. And we'll do image texture. Let's open an image and let's navigate to where I've stored all of these images on my machine. I'm going to use the exact same texture that we used for the art markers. That's a pretty cool one. And there it is. Now, since this is the first material slot is applied to all of the materials in our scene, let's just fix that real fast. Yep, looking good. Let's grab this wall, assign it to the wall material. I'm going to hit the L key as I hover over my baseboards to grab all the polygons that are associated with that polygon group. And as one might imagine, assign it to the baseboards material. And now we're up and running. Shoot, the paint can is getting that same default floor material. So for the time being, let's just turn the visibility of the paint can off and things are working. So our UV workspace and our UV work environment is a pretty fluid, and it's designed to be a pretty fluid workspace. Comfortable. This grid is important. Be aware of the relationship between the 3D polygons on the right and their 2D representations on the left. This is going to be our home away from home in this entire module. So take a few moments, get comfortable working in this space.